And then it looks like Joanne entered into the chat and said she lives in Washington, D.C., owns a rooftop solar system and wants to encourage widespread adoption. So this is the place to be. Debbie, you're next if you're able to unmute yourself.
Yes, my name is Debbie Hanrahan. I live in DuPont Circle. I've had solar for about a year. I have not paid a Pepco bill since. I am very interested in the lawsuit that is now being developed and wonder how we can help provide political or outside or whatever kind of support to get the attention of the city that we really care about this.
Great. Yeah, we'll chat about that. And next up, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Alexis. Hi, everybody. My name is Jim Purical. I'm with SunPower Corporation. We're a 36-year-old solar storage company and energy services company. We're based out of San Jose, California. But I live in Washington, D.C., specifically Northeast D.C., about a mile away from the Capitol building. And so I'm looking to try and get, to become more of an advocate here on the local level. I don't have solar panels on my house just yet, but I have inquired into them. It's not as easy, I think, on our flat top roof here to do, and there's some shading impact and effect, but that's okay. I think we'll get past all that. So I'm interested in advocating for more solar and integrating more storage also into the DC area. So nice to meet you all.
Jim, welcome. We work a lot with Robin Duda from your office.
Yeah, you bet.
Federal advocacy.
Yeah, that's right. Robin is about a mile and a half away from where we live right now, and we see Robin pretty often.
Margaret.
Hi, my name is Margaret Huckabee, and I'm in charge of buildings and grounds at St. John's, Georgetown, and we're getting very close to putting solar panels on the roof of both our church and our rectory next door. I'm here to listen and learn, but most especially I'm kind of interested in this Pepco fee upgrade charge and whether that is happening all across the district or only in certain neighborhoods. I'm getting conflicting points of view from people who have already put solar panels on their roofs. I do not have solar panels on my personal home. However, I own a Tesla, and it would be wonderful to be able to put those on my personal home as well.
Awesome. Carol? Looks like you're still muted.
Hi, Carol Lewis Anderson. And hello, Margaret. It's nice to see you live here. I have solar on my roof. I've been a passionate environmentalist for years and years. And as Debbie Hanrahan mentioned, my entire interest is to motivate the city managers, council, candidates to do something about Pepco. And irrespective of Pepco, just to make it happen. There's no excuse for not harvesting that sun that's up there. Unless you know what the excuse is, because, I can't figure it out. Thank you.
Yeah, Matthew?
Hi, everyone. I live in Parkview. I'm a district resident, interested in solar and in the environment in general, and also interested in public policy. So that's why I'm here.
Great. Anne?
I live in Ward 3, and I am very interested in a variety of environmental issues. I've submitted written testimony to the council on several recent bills and a comment to the Public Service Commission complaining about Pepco and their proposed rule. I don't have solar panels on my house. It's an old roof, which I'm not ready to fix, and there makes no sense to replace. And it makes no sense to put panels on an old roof.
Great. And then was it Marie Burns?
Hi, Maris. So I work for a local solar company. So, interested in policy and keeping up with what's going on in DC. Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks. Sorry about that. I always gotta mess up at least one name, you know? Amy?
Sorry, trying to do too many things. Amy Hubbard. I live on the southeast edge of Capitol Hill and just have been interested in getting more involved in the DC area and finding out what organizations are doing around climate change. And we got our solar panels in the fall last year, and it was a real daunting task. And Solar United Neighbors helped me out so much because they happen to have a co-op just right at the time I was about to call companies. And it, especially in the DC area, it seems to make so much sense. So I'm interested in learning more and how I can help promote that.
Great, I'm glad you had a good experience with the co-op too. Luis?
Yes, well, you can't see me. I live in Mount Pleasant, and I'm part of the original, I think, 50 families that got solar panels put up about 12 years ago.
Awesome. Rita?
I just want to say Louise was part of the founding, the group that founded Solar United Neighbors. Then we started as the Mount Pleasant Solar Cooperative. And we started in 2007, and it took us 2 years to do the first co-op. And Louise was part of the pioneering group. So nice to hear your voice, even if I can't see you.
Oh, I don't know where I am. Let's see if I can put myself back on here. Anyway, I am very proud to be one of the pioneers, and I think there was right after we had about 300 people that wanted to do it, and then in the end we were about 50, but we went forward.
Amazing. Rita? Looks like you're still muted.
Okay, there you go. I'm in Ward 5 and homeowner here, and I am very interested in getting solar. I have an old roof and a tree that makes it so that I don't pass shade analysis, but I am a subscriber to Community Solar. And interested, I did see that there was one gentleman in Brookland who had gotten the solar shingles. So I wanted to take a look at that because that seems to be the highest logic. Really, if you're at the point where you need to replace a roof and get solar at the same time and get storage. So anyway, just interested in policy and watching how things evolve around Pepco, because I feel like they're definitely trying to block the evolution of the solar industry as it's going on as well in Florida and California. So I did try to respond to a petition last night, but I see there was a corrected link, and I was wondering what happened to that and how that got lost. So I will be submitting again. All right, then. Nice to meet you all, and thank you. I'll unmute myself. I'll mute myself.
Rita, thanks so much for responding to the petition. My apologies, it was just a mistake on our end. We didn't connect the petition to the email. And so for the people who tried, we resent it. So thanks again, and definitely resend it. We will continue sort of keeping people who click and sign the petition to show their interest. They'll get more emails to keep them up to date with that fight as it goes.
But I did go into the link and I responded to all the other projects.
Thank you.
What is the petition? Could you put it in the chat, or will you send it to all of us? Or
You should have gotten it yesterday from us. We sent it to everybody on our mailing list, and it was about net metering. But we can probably find the link also while we're chatting and put it in the chat. But if you look in your inbox email, you should see something from me. I think it went out from me.
Yeah, I can track that down once we finish getting through these. I think we just have one more. It looks like Mark or Zara.
Zara, ICSC residency programs, Ward 4, Rock Creek East resident, repurposing family homestead, community solar subscriber interested in rooftop. Thanks.
Thank you for joining. Thank you all for being here. We're really excited. We wanted to kick off the meeting with doing some report back from our previous meeting. We'd had some folks doing some research and wanted to give them the opportunity to report back on what they had found. Matthew, are you good if we start with you? I think you might have had a presentation. You should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, I will. Sorry, hold on one second. I'm happy to go first. Let me see if I can. Okay. Can you folks see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Now I just have to figure out how to get it to go full screen. Well, if you can see it enough as it is, then I'll not waste everyone's time. So I was actually tasked 2 meetings ago with looking into the Solar for All residential solar program, and both getting sort of a lay of the land and understanding of how the program is currently functioning, and then also looking into outreach in Ward 7 and 8 in particular, and how that works. So I have a little bit of basic information about the Solar for All program and how it works. So first, it's operated by the DC Sustainable Energy Utility, which is run by a private company called VEIC that has a large multi-year contract with the district, and they just have started a new 5-year contract in the current fiscal year. So October of 2021 was when the new contract began. So that was an extension of the original contract with a total value of $240 million. However, the funding from Solar for All comes from actually a different revenue stream. So the DC SEU does lots of different things. You may have encountered it if, for example, you have replaced appliances in your home and got a rebate for, a heat pump or some kind of other HVAC improvement. So that's one of the things they do. They also do lots of work with commercial buildings, retrofitting rebates and contractors, training a green workforce in the district, and lots of other things. So they are responsible for administering the Solar for All program, which began actually 3 or 4 years ago. So it's relatively new. It wasn't originally. It wasn't a launch activity when the DC SEU started. And essentially, Solar for All lets you get a solar installation in your home or in your rented home with the approval of the homeowner. And it's free if you meet certain income requirements. So as you can see here, there is the information about the various levels of income and then the size of the household that these are the maximum income levels that would qualify someone or household to get Solar for All. So as you can see, it's not for wealthy folks or even for sort of middle class and upper middle class folks, but really for people that are on the lower income spectrum, but not completely certainly not destitute or anything of that sort. So there is installation on single family units, and then there's also community solar installations that also fall under the Solar for All program. So it's essentially sort of, I'm not an expert on CREFs, but it's essentially, generating capacity that is shared by several homes, that is found on some kind of community space of one sort or another. So if you have a condo building, for example, this is one option available to you. The Solar for All budget has been relatively static over the previous several years, and it's anticipated to be relatively static. So essentially, the number of installations that they're planning on doing is not going to increase all that much. And I have some information about the number of installations that I'll share with you in a minute. I did connect directly with someone from DCSU who did share some information with me, but not everything I was looking for. And they indicated that there is, like a 6-month lead time at this point, that there is more interest than capacity to do the Solar for All installations. My understanding is that the issue is not necessarily with the installers, but actually with those who are processing the paperwork and income qualification, all those different things on the DCSU side of things. So the overall sort of objective of the DCSU and Solar for All in particular is to reduce electricity bills of low-income households. And so most of the programs that DCSU has do have some kind of income related benchmark. So, 30% of households benefiting from this program or another program need to be income qualified, for example. And then the sort of the impact of the program is also measured in the number of kilowatt hours of green energy that are produced as a result of the solar installations, the craft installations, or other programs. So if you, I was not able to, they don't really publish information in the easiest way to find or process, unfortunately. So I ended up reading lots of annual and quarterly reports and looking at PowerPoint presentations and all sorts of different things and trying to glean what I could from that. I think this information gives you a good sense of the number of installations that have been happening, and then also where the installations are happening. I was unable to get an updated map of single family and craft installations in the district, but my understanding is that it's more or less consistent with what I have here for the previous year. And so, we're talking about like 80 to 120 single family installations per year under Solar for All. They have for fiscal year 21, so that has ended already. So it ended last September. The goal was 300 total single family installations over the course of the program. I don't know if they have actually met that because they haven't published or shared their reports. But I was told that they're planning on increasing investments in Solar for All, which is not super consistent with the amount of money they have budgeted for it. But also I've been unable to get the strategic plan, which I think has not been finalized. And so that's a strategic plan for this year until for the next 5 years. And then finally, on community outreach, they don't do much community, oops, I'm sorry, I changed this. They don't do much community outreach. I'm looking for the right, hold on a second. They don't do much community outreach, essentially. The outreach is done essentially by the installers themselves for the most part. And so people essentially submit an application or they find out about the program via installers, and then information on their website. So on their website, they have basic information and the application and so on. But they don't seem to do public events specifically related to Solar for All. There has been some social media advertisements, and you may have seen some other literature around the district. But really, there's not much. So on one side, you can see that they do seem to be reaching people in Ward 7 and 8, for example, based on the map this map here. However, and actually, I don't know exactly how all of those leads were generated. But there seems to be room for improving the community outreach, and in particular, potentially through partnerships with, civil society organizations, activists, groups like ourselves, for example. And that's what I found out.
Hey, I work for a solar installer here in DC. We have worked with this program in the past, but are not currently doing it this year because we found it very, very hard to find homeowners to sign up. I personally reached out to the mutual aid programs in each ward and asked if they could find people who might want to sign up, and had difficulties with them. And I think this is something I've spoken with my colleagues about, and unfortunately, something we don't really have the capacity to do the outreach for. But I think having flyers both in English and in Spanish would be incredibly helpful to get more people to sign up for this. Just my personal opinion here.
I have a little bit more background to add in terms of Sun. We ran the single family program during that first year, those 85 installs. And of course, we didn't do the installs. We had them as part of our group purchases. And I think we've heard from many installers, not just you, Maris. Almost every installer that's worked with the DCSEU has said it's a very difficult program. It's difficult to work with SEU. They keep changing the rules. They blame DOEE. DOE blames them. So there's a lot of this. And it makes it very, very difficult for installers, which is why I think a lot more money gets spent than needs to get to. And our position from the get-go, whether it was Sun or another group, was that they needed consistent education and outreach for the program for all the participants, because we had found many of the participants weren't told the same thing, depending on who their installer was. So some of them got great education and great installers. Other of them didn't know what they were getting into. So there's not a lot of consistency. So there's a lot of room to improve that program that we've been concerned about. But I think we should maybe make sure we have time to ask Matthew questions about his awesome presentation. I really appreciate him pulling all that info together.
Could I ask a question about the 240 million? The 5-year, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
The 5-year contract is worth 240 million. And of course, that includes other programs as well as Solar for All, correct? I mean, they're responsible for many things. And this is a company that had his contract renewed. This is their second a chance at it. And was there any competitive bidding, or did anybody look at any other groups that might do a better job, or what? I mean, it doesn't sound like they're, I mean, it seems like the citizens groups are doing a far better job than the highly paid groups are. That's what I'm getting at. And so I'm wondering if there's some way that we could not spend quite so much money and have a better, output.
So
I don't put you on the spot, but
no, I have answers to your questions. So the company that administers the program was reviewed positively and had met or exceeded most of the benchmarks that had been established in the first period of the contract. So again, this is, in kilowatt hours of energy produced. There's a variety of different benchmarks, and they actually receive incentives for exceeding those benchmarks too. So my understanding is that the work was generally well received, and so the district exercised an option in the contract to extend it for another 5 years. So that option was already built in. And so they were able to extend that, within the confines of the pre-existing bidding the competitive process that had already taken place at the beginning.
They actually ran a competitive bidding process for the second round, but then because we applied along with a lot of other groups. We didn't apply to do the whole thing. We joined like a consortium that was trying to do it. And I'm not saying ours was going to be a better bid, but I know that multiple groups bid. So
I wish you'd gotten it. That's all.
I'm sort of glad we didn't, frankly, but that's another story.
Right. But can I just mention a factoid that somebody told me between the last meeting we had with you and tonight, which I think is really interesting. A friend of mine who is an installer had his technician photograph repeatedly the convention center. And he said that it would easily take care of, I think it was like 340 to 365 houses. And, just that one roof would provide air conditioning, refrigerator, washer, dryer, not heat, but everything else. And that we are losing that by not solarizing that roof. And so I thought that was astounding. No comment. Nobody ever comments about the lost opportunities that exist right in front of us in our city.
Well, I'll comment if I may. I'll just remind everybody it's an election year again. One of those candidates should take this as one of his or her platform issues, and we should be pushing it.
Is there any technical reason why Pepco can't absorb an increase in clean solar like a convention center? Somebody told me the grid would blow up. Is that an accurate concern? I mean, a real concern?
The grid would not blow up. Sometimes Pepco will need to do upgrades where the new system interconnects with the local distribution system. And sometimes those upgrades cost money, which is one of the things that we are quarreling with Pepco about, because they seem to be fairly random and arbitrary as to how they sign those costs, which makes it very difficult to do business. But no, first of all, most of the electricity, actually all of the electricity on the convention center would be used at the convention center. So it'd have close to zero impact on the grid. It's not going to be back feeding out because the convention center has such a big load, big demand. Right?
Wonderful, wonderful.
I want to make sure we have time. I want to make sure anybody has questions about the DCSEU presentation, and then we have a couple other big agenda items we want to make sure we get to.
And the lawsuit.
I do have a question about the DCSEU, and thanks for that report. It was really interesting. And I think it might have been the last meeting we had with this group where someone was pointing out that the council really can't do much. They can pass bills, but they're not administering things. Is this something then that we want to lay at the mayor's doorstep, because the mayor would be responsible for the administration? Because can the council do anything?
When the council holds oversight, I don't know what you mean do anything about what in particular.
Well, there was the reference to the delays in paperwork.
Yeah. So the so the DC Department of the Environment, DOEE, they manage the DCSEU. So
Okay.
they're responsible for any good or bad that happens there. And so the mayor appoints Tommy Wells, and
Mhm.
he's accountable to her. And the council holds oversight hearings.
Mhm.
And there's an opportunity for citizens to come in and ask questions or testify during those annual oversight hearings. And Mary Chay's been quite a vigilant in that process, but I think everyone heard that she's retiring. So the question is, who's up? And the other thing is, the other oversight comes from the DC Public Service Commission, and this is a really key point. We've had an empty slot open in the commission for practically 6 months now. And we've had a real problem with the mayor applying qualified people to that position. So there's
So
a
in
lot
terms of, yeah.
opportunity, yeah.
So in terms of upcoming elections and stuff, it would be reasonable to ask questions about this, not just the mayor, but to people on council, because they would have some kind of involvement.
Absolutely.
There's also just one more piece of information. There's an advisory board to DCSEU that
Okay.
meets on a monthly basis. I have not been able to participate in their meetings, but they, they consider a variety of different questions on a regular basis and receive reports from the DCSEU, and it could be an avenue to, put pressure or introduce various questions. But I don't, I can't say how impactful the advisory board is myself. I don't have enough experience.
Can I ask a practical question? Anya, how many roofs do you put on in a year with your very small group of people and your not very big budget?
In DC, you mean?
Yep.
Well, first of all, remember, we don't do the installs. We just
No.
organize them.
But how many? Yeah.
Sucre?
How many? Like
How many
5?
did we do last year?
Yeah,
In the DC co-op, we did around 52 installs.
52.
And,
So,
yeah.
so really, you're right up there with the DC government and the free solar for all. You're very close. You're a lot smaller.
Substantially smaller, but we push
Yeah.
more than we do
Yeah.
more. Yeah, for organization of our size, we make a huge difference for sure.
I just want a comparison.
So one of the questions is, if the goal of the bill is 100,000, they don't seem to be on a trajectory to get there. So that's one of my big questions, is like, how do you get from here to there? It doesn't seem to be something they're taking seriously. And that could be a question for anybody.
If I could make a comment, Anya, just to piggyback on your comment also about the Public Service Commission. And I was talking to one of the associates. So I also represent the Chesapeake Solar and Storage Association. And I think one of the things we would like also see is a more proactive PSC. And I don't think that that's just exclusive to Chesa or to SunPower. I think that is what we want to see kind of across the nation, because it's really the regulatory bodies, I feel, that they can really kind of, they are the council has the authority to really oversee the PSC, but the PSC really is the rulemaking body. And I think what we see in DC, especially, if you can believe it or not, the demographic, the population in DC really embraces the fact that climate change exists, right? And that is not a foregone conclusion. That is not an accepted belief, right, in other parts of the country. So, if we can mobilize the PSC, if we can get them to take more of a proactive stance, I think that could set the tone for other parts of the country. Now that's kind of the wild optimist.
Do you have a candidate that we could ask our candidates to support? I mean, could you give us some names and say, would you please push these people? They come highly supported by people who really know what we need. I mean, do you have such a thing? Would you be willing to provide a slate for citizens to go harass their candidates about?
I mean, that's a great question, and I think I do actually have a couple of names that I'm not going to mention them here on screen here too, but I think that's
I mean,
I also think that's a really good, if anybody sees the mayor, she's all over town right now because she's running for office, really pushing her on the Public Service Commission appointments because they're the cops for Pepco, right? And she's left that position open, and she's made a series of appointments over the last few years of people who are not doing their job well. So getting her to step up is, I think, and I think I'll do this out of order, but if you guys have seen the press release or any of the news stories from the Attorney General's office, and I think a couple people mentioned it as a lawsuit. In fact, it's not going to be a lawsuit, at least not yet. It's a filing at the Public Service Commission. So in coordination with DOE and the DC Attorney General's office, led by the Attorney General's office, they have filed a case at the Public Service Commission. And you can Google DCist. We have a link to the, that's a different one. It's a really, really, one of the most hardest hitting accusations against Pepco I've ever seen. And it basically is talking about the community solar, the CREF program that Matt just gave us a nice presentation about Pepco not giving those credits to the subscribers. So I really encourage people to take a look at that. I think this filing creates an opportunity for all kinds of action and accountability because there's finally news about it.
But as an organization, would you be willing to suggest a couple of names that we could walk around with and talk to candidates about? To be on the Public Service Commission to fill that position?
I don't know what you're doing with your free time, but I'm tempted to nominate you, actually.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah. No, but I mean.
Yeah, we've often had candidates in the past. So yeah, we would definitely.
I mean, your candidates would have credibility. I mean, obviously. Hers,
we should do it with Chesa, like a joint slate of potential candidates. We should do it together.
For one position? Are you talking about one position? You would have 2 or 3? Oh, yeah.
One position.
I mean, it's not much of a slate if there's only one person.
Well, we could give them a choice of 3 people and say any of these 3.
Excellent. No, seriously, because Carol Lewis Anderson and myself are working with a candidate. We're going to be working with some others. We would love to raise this issue again and again, because now is our window of opportunity.
I mean, and the way it works is the mayor makes the appointment, and then, but it has to go to the DC Council for approval.
Right.
And and it's a heavy lift not to approve the mayor's appointment.
Yeah. Okay. Now you also just go a little further with this. What caused the Attorney General to finally move on this? I mean, I know this has been a problem for a couple of years, the inaction of Pepco to fairly deal with these people who are kind of being elected. What happened? How did you push it?
I think we're going to take credit for that.
No, that's great. No, that's great.
We sent a very formal letter to DOE in November, which I think I shared with some of you in one of the previous calls. And it asked for formal accounting of what had happened to the credits from Solar for All, the community solar credits. And it was drafted with help from Earth Justice, nonprofit public service law firm. And so we got their attention, and we heard from the inside that that's what caused them to decide to move forward and reach out to the Attorney General's office to take it. So we don't take credit when we don't deserve it, or when we're not supposed, when we need to share it, but we're taking credit on moving this one. It was a big victory. Thanks, Matt.
And again, just if you have a theory, why don't we solarize our big roofs that we own? I know the DC government is a pain in the butt to work with, but basically it's not a difficult, according to this guy I talked to, these roofs are not difficult to do. It's not like they're so big and they're difficult. Why doesn't the city want to make the money or save the money by solarizing a dozen big roofs that I could name? Why?
I mean, it's a good question. Like I said last time, Debbie, they have done a lot. So DC.
Like where? I mean, there's one DC.
10 megawatts on schools. That's a lot of schools. 10 megawatts.
10 megawatts.
All around the city. And they have done a bunch of other buildings. DOE could give an accounting. It would be a great question if somebody wanted to volunteer to ask DGES or DOE to give you a list of every building in the district that the district owns where they.
I'll do it.
That would be a great.
Because I think you were here at the first meeting that I came to. A guy who was an installer said he was only aware of one library in Southwest that was solarized, and he was not aware of any other.
It's a lot of buildings.
There are a lot of buildings. Okay.
A lot of buildings. And I don't know that what the convention center issue is, because I thought it was supposed to go solar, but DC is moving through it. It's just not, just like everything else in DC government, it doesn't move very fast.
But they also redid Duke Ellington School and they did not solarize it.
And the new library, they did not.
I mean, it begs the question. It's something, and nobody's mentioning Pepco in this regard, but there must be some kind of insidious power that Pepco has that is holding politicians at bay. And that's what we have to unlock.
Yeah. Before I know we're gonna run out of time, I wanted to make sure Sucrit had time to talk about the bulk purchase we're launching soon, and definitely, see if anybody wants to help us get the word out. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, Anya, happy to. So we have covered a lot of heavy stuff, and I'm here to bring some mood change and deliver some good news. So, we ran our first round of what we call the capital area co-ops last year. This was a bit different from our the basic co-ops we usually do across the 12 states that we're working in. What we did was we merged the DMV states over here, and we run these co-ops across Maryland, DC, and Northern Virginia. It was a huge success. We can't quite recall in terms of numbers, but it was more than 250 or 300 people who eventually went solar through those co-ops. And we are doing a second rendition of that co-op this year. In DC, we are officially launching that co-op on April 1st this year. And Alexis, if you could just drop the short link on the chat. There you go, Xavier, thank you so much. That's where folks can join that co-op right now. We're officially launching that co-op on April 1st, but that website's up and running already. So if you have folks, neighbors, friends who are interested in joining that co-op, they can join that link over there. And usually it takes me a day or two to evaluate the roof and get back to them and let them know if they're a good fit for rooftop solar. If not, we just redirect them to alternative resources. Now, whoever is going to spread the word around these co-ops, inevitably, you might have public members or folks who might just ask you, well, I heard someone who has received some pushback from Pepco regarding some upgrade requests or what have you. I'm just going to let you know that our DC team is actively working with CHESA and some other third-party stakeholders to resolve this on a case-by-case basis. What that means is we meet with folks from CHESA and other installers in the region. I know Jim's on this call, so he can vouch for that. So we meet every couple of weeks. We have relayed those concerns officially to Pepco. We've, provided a study to them. And we're also asking folks to reach out to the PSC to escalate this. And of the 52 folks who went solar last year, initially we had 15 people in that co-op who received upgrade cost requests and what have you from Pepco. Most of them have been resolved. So this issue is either abating or we are doing our best to bring it to Pepco's attention and resolve this.
Yeah, it's scaring people. It's a disincentive.
For sure. It is frustrating. I have spoken individually to a couple of installers who are interested in participating in the next round of these co-ops. And, they are aware of these issues. It does affect some of their work, but in spite of that, they're interested. So that does tell you that, in spite of these issues, installers are still interested and most of them get resolved after some amount of time. I can't commit to a specific number, but we are on it.
I wanted to add one thing, especially because we have two in the audience, and that is that the thrust of the co-op is education. And we usually will educate several hundred people to take 20 or 30 solar. Most of those people go on and go solar, and we're fine with that. We also educate people in Spanish. We have videos in Spanish, we have Spanish speakers, and we have materials in Spanish. So for us, it's part of building the market overall. And then we take a piece of that group through our competitive RFP process forward. But we know we did a survey in Montgomery County, and after we did our first co-op there, I think our first co-op was like 50. After we did that, the number of installs compared to the same period in the previous year and the following year increased by like 300%.
Wow.
That's because we were driving people, giving them free education, answering their questions, building their confidence. And then if they decide to go with us because that was a good fit, fine. But a lot of people need more specialty, or they want, they want the SunPower panels, and they go find someone that has that. We just explain to them what the differences are. We don't try to hold on to them. So it's really about building the market and getting more people educated. And I just want to be really clear about that in terms of what our goals are.
And just to add to what Anya said, we just officially call them info sessions. It's basically a webinar we run online. It used to be in person, but because of COVID, we went online.
Right.
Usually for co-ops, we do it once a month. For DC, for this co-op, there's no official date yet, but we spoke to our partners, the DOEE today, and we're tentatively planning for mid-May. That's going to be our first info session. So I hope to have an official date for you the next time we have one of these meetings. And once it's official, I'll ask you to spread the word or drop the link in the chat section, but it's in the works. It's sometime in May.
If you were uncomfortable giving names or advocating for people, at least we know that we should pressure people to get the mayor to fill the position with a good candidate. I mean, we can do that much. We don't have to know specific names, but I think, this is kind of in the weeds, but we know that the Public Service Commission is very important, very important. And she is not, she's contributing to everybody's problems by not shaping it up. And I don't know, I was just hoping we could help you somehow in that, or help ourselves, because there's no excuse for not getting a good person. Really. Not in this city with all the talent in this town. I mean, there's so many good people.
There's been tons of great candidates that have gone forward. And part of what people think is happening is she made a series of not very progressive appointments to the commission, the last 2 or 3. They were people that either had utility background or no energy background, didn't have renewable energy, and they didn't have, or we'd frankly be fine with someone who had a ratepayer advocacy background that cared about impact on low-income households, because they know how to look at the books and ask tough questions, which is all we need, right? And so Mary Cheh led the passage of a bill that had a minimum requirements for appointment to the commission. The mayor was furious, threatened to veto it, And the council had enough votes to override the veto, so she didn't veto it. Apparently that bill expires. Was a temporary emergency bill and it expires. And so people think that the mayor is just waiting till the bill expires before she makes the appointment. So I don't even think we need a name. I think people can email the mayor, call out the mayor, write a letter to the editor and say, we need a full commission. Where is it? Stop delay. It's outrageous.
Right. No, I mean, it's like, I mean, all this effort that's being made in so many different areas, and it's all, and without a public service commission to ride herd on Pepco, we're nowhere. I mean, you just will not try to solarize the city. I just want to, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but the pro Pepco bias or whatever that exists, even somebody like me who doesn't understand solar at all, I know that Pepco is the prime person in this room, the big elephant, and the rest of us can go, wait our turn. I mean, seriously. And that's what I want to see if we can't undo. Now, have other cities been successful in challenging the excessive power of their utility companies? Are you aware of any that have done something really good to rein them in? Is there another city?
There's lots of worse and better examples. Let's put it that way.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. That's too bad. Okay.
That's for a longer night. I want to make sure if anybody has any questions or suggestions on next steps before we run out of time, make sure that everybody gets a chance to talk. So if you haven't spoken up yet, please do. Anne.
I have a question. Why haven't the environmental groups gotten together and held environmental candidate forums? I've suggested it to 2 other groups and been resoundingly slapped down.
I don't know who you suggested it to. For Solar United Neighbors, we are a 501c3, so we're not allowed to do electoral politics. We can do it in our spare time as a volunteer, but as an NGO, we can't, for example, use our mailing list for electoral politics. So I don't know if that's, some NGOs have both a C3 and a C4, or a C3 to C4 in a pack, like the Sierra Club does. So they can do that, but we need to rely on a group that has that capacity.
No, at least some of the groups I've asked are C4s.
Yeah.
And I hadn't realized for a purely educational purpose, a C3 couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I have asked C4s and they just don't seem to want to do it. But it seems to me, one of the things we should all be doing, and I know some people who are trying to do it, is we should be getting to candidate forums regularly and asking tough environmental questions.
Yeah.
Well, and I do know that Sierra Club is holding some candidate forums. I've been trying to make a list of candidate forums. So I know there is something going on around that.
We can share it if we find out any more about that. And we can ask, have you talked to the DC Climate Coalition? Because that includes most of the groups.
I just had some computer problems. No, I haven't, and that's a good idea.
Okay, we can talk to them before the next meeting and maybe get them to, maybe we can even get someone to come and talk here, or at least give us an update, or I'll find something out about that.
What the Sierra Club has been doing, at least with one candidate that we know, is inviting them in individually and questioning them to find out what their position is.
Yeah.
I think prerequisite to making an endorsement,
Yeah.
but not a panel.
Yeah, that's, and I know also Chesa and some of the installers have been, because they're a C6, there's no limit. So the industry group can hold fundraisers for candidates and candidate forums and things like that. Chesa's just stretched for capacity, but not interest, I think.
So, and on that note also, Anya, I did want to take a moment here too. We have a new executive director for Chesapeake. We literally just started about a month ago. And so Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself also. But I should say too, Chesapeake, we represent community solar utility scale and also, the residential installations too that you find on homes too. So we do cover a lot, but like you said, we're operating with a little bit of bandwidth, but we're trying to increase that bandwidth as well. So Stephanie Johnson, our new executive director. I don't know. I know she's driving. I'm not sure if she has an opportunity to come on screen.
Wait, is she on call?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you so much for the introduction, Jim. I want to say hello to everyone. We are planning, to be involved in this. We're working on a strategy right now. So if, any of you want to connect offline and send me email, I really appreciate your thoughts. I'm really excited to be engaged and to be on the call. And, this is very educational for me. I'm excited to get plugged in and help you all.
Welcome, Stephanie, to your new job.
Stephanie, can I drop your email in the chat section, if that's okay?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I'll
Great.
put in
Thank you
the
so much.
Chesa ID. Yeah, of course.
I just want to mention one last thing. I lived a long time in DC, and I remember one summer, the city totally redid every playground in the city because of a lawsuit. I remember when we modernized the school buildings in maybe 2.5 years, we actually came in under time. I remember when the city has done major upgrades. Why can't the city put solar roofs, in like 6 months on every building in the city? I mean, why can't this be a priority? The city can do it if they're motivated, but I don't see any motivation anywhere. And you guys have been working so hard and so well, and they have just not taken, usually things like this catch on, but it's like they're resisting. They are resisting.
All right, Debbie, you're going to bring the list back to us next
I am
time.
going to bring the
Okay.
list back. And I hear you, but I given our potential, I think we're pathetic. And this is no reflection on you guys, but just on the city that's so highly educated, so well-to-do. Where is the government leadership? I don't see it. Does anybody see it? I mean, I'm being a pain in the neck here, but I'm really exasperated.
Yeah, I think nobody sees the leadership, and a lot of people have different focuses on what they think is the most important. And so I think that's what we're trying to balance here.
Okay.
I had to go to the dentist today and my mouth hurts. So
I'm sorry.
I'm going to sign off.
Right. Thank you for your patience.
But I really enjoyed seeing everybody today. Alexis, do you have closing comments or thoughts or next steps for us? Put you on the spot.
No, yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you, Anya, so much for being able to do it even without being super comfortable. So we appreciate it. Thanks everyone for joining us. We will send a follow-up email tomorrow with the information that was shared today, recording, and I'll send the link for the next meeting. We'll meet again on the 4th Thursday next month. So we'll keep doing it on that cadence. So you will be aware of you. We appreciate all of your guys' support and we hope to see you next time. Thanks everyone.
I'm going to add one thing, which is if you want to communicate more frequently, get on the listserv, Solar DC at Google Groups. Lots of times it goes slow and sometimes it gets hot and heavy, but if you want to be connecting at a regular basis and get regular updates and this is more in depth once a month, but day to day, feel free to join the Google group and feel free to share your ideas or updates there.
Do we need an invitation to do that?
You can just join it and we'll accept you into the group, but I'll also send it in the follow-up email so that you have the direct link to join.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.